They've done something quite extraordinary with the Battlefield franchise. They've rolled the numbers back all the way to 1. Battlefield 1 is coming. Daniel Berlin is the lead world designer of a game that's set in World War I. And of course, that has to be my first question. How did you guys decide that World War I was where you're going to place this game?
Yeah, no, I mean, so at DICE, when we decide what to do next, we look at the core pillars. What setting would support the gameplay that we want? And the setting of World War I, the setting of the Great War, has been, I'd say, a passion project for DICE to be able to do this World War I setting. We wanted to do it for a long time, and now we finally got to unveil it to the world, and it feels really good.
Hollywood has done an extraordinary job, and you guys have too, at filling in some details and blanks and exposing a lot of the minutia of World War II. World War I is something that hasn't been explored, especially in video games, but even in the big screen, popular media overall. Is it a subject matter that may be a little bit more sensitive or a little bit more in tune, or people might be a little bit more in tune with in Europe? And is that maybe an ingredient that the Stockholm studio is working on a World War I game?
I don't know actually how in tune it is versus like over here and in Sweden. I know that we do teach World War I in the curriculum in Swedish schools, for example. So I had some idea what it was, but once we actually started to delve into the setting, I personally learned so much. I mean, I had no idea the vast amount of weapons that you could have and the width of that. I had no idea that it actually was like such a global war on such a global scale, that you will be in the deserts, you will be in the mountains of Italy, and you will be also in the trenches of Europe. We are depicting that, but there's so much more to the world to be able to be inside French cities and towns and all these things. It's great.
It's a messier war, right? I mean, that's what we understand about World War I. Messy in terms of the physical sort of qualities and the up close and personal type of combat that was prevalent, but also politically, because it wasn't as clear-cut good guys versus bad guys as World War II was. How do you convey that side of the conflict in your storytelling and even in the multiplayer matches, where there has to be, I guess, a certain amount of sensitivity for the stories that are going to unfold in the game?
So the stories that we're depicting in the single-player campaign are personal stories, and they're focused on specific characters and how they deal with the world that is changing around them. This is an entertainment product for us, so we're not really taking a political standpoint or anything for this. So it's meant for us to deliver fun gameplay in this era, but we want to stay true to the era in terms of authenticity as well. But at the end of the day, it's an entertainment product.
Okay, gotcha. One of the things that I think you guys really demonstrated well in our little briefing that we had before this is the idea of the old sort of claiming the new with all this new technology. It almost looks in some ways like science fiction for the people from the 19th century.
It was science fiction for them. I mean, this was soldiers that had never seen like a tank, a warship like this. They had never seen this before. So you can just imagine sitting in a trench and just like the stories got to them. Just like, no, they have these big metal hulking monsters coming at you. It's like, no, it's not true. I don't believe this. But then they saw them, and just the impact. That's what we want to. That's what we want to convey. The size of them and the powerfulness and how they completely just obliterate buildings and everything. And that's a really cool experience to have.
And you guys are also introducing a big chunk of aerial combat into this thing with I guess Sopwith camels and stuff like that, with these ancient aircraft. Does that change the game dynamics considerably from the faster jets and stuff that we get in the more modern Battlefield games?
I think if you look at the breadth of the things that was available, the tanks and the weapons and everything, we can still keep the pace that players love from Battlefield. So we're not really making a slower game. So definitely we can keep the pace up with it. But the biplanes, they are really, really fun, and they're so agile. So you can really create these super cool dogfights. Also, with the ability for players to be multiple people in a plane. So you can have one guy driving, you can have another guy in the gunner's seat behind it, so he can basically keep his tail free from the guy who's chasing him. It's just become super cool.
And you guys have a new physical hand-to-hand combat mechanic in there as well. And I guess this probably was the the thing that you kind of had to sweat the details on the most, because we really haven't been in that space before. It's always been a little distance between our enemies, but in this one we're going to be locked eye to eye in a lot of these conflicts.
Yeah, you are.
Right?
It's like I touched upon before. It's just also like how we mix the environments to kind of cater for that. So you will be in close quarter combat situations, be they in a city or in a trench, where hand-to-hand becomes much more viable than has been in previous Battlefield games. So it was such a big part of how you made war back then. It's just like you had powder-wise weaponry, yes, but as well you had a trench knife or a shovel or a spike club, and we really want to depict the kind of like the mix of warfare, like you said, the old that kind of meets the new industrial area, and that's where the game really shines. I think that you get that cool mix, and it's something that you haven't really seen before.
Awesome. I'm a huge fan of the dogfighting in your Battlefront game, your Star Wars Battlefront game. It's really fun, but it's kind of a separated experience from the core on-ground battles that are happening. You can do a little bit of that, but it's like a whole separate mode. Yeah. Are you guys going to be doing dogfights in these slower but more agile planes, happening as a huge land battle? Are all of these kinds of scenarios going to be contained within a level, or are we going to mode a lot of these different types of conflicts out?
I wouldn't actually say that these planes would feel slower. Actually, they feel really fast when you're in them.
Okay.
But with that said, I can't really go into specifics on game modes. But what I can say, what we're doing with game modes, is we're kind of looking at the era and how you made war back then.
Okay.
And we're kind of catering new experiences for you guys to really put you into the shoes of the infantry soldier, of the tank soldier, of the pilot in those biplanes.
What's been, kind of the most surprising for you guys as you're testing out the different assets on the battlefield for the first time, because you've never made anything like this before? What has kind of shocked you? Because I know a lot of game design is happy accidents, that you kind of find through, iteration and discovery. But what has surprised you that you think fans are really going to love about this game?
I think the thing that had the most impact on me is the bayonet charge.
Okay.
Because I heard about it, and then the guys said all right, we got a first implementation going, let's try it out. People tried it out, they loved it, and they just started to use it so much. And now it's just we kind of just bridged the gap between long-range fire battles and hand-to-hand combat, and that was just now you really felt the era. Now you really felt like I'm in World War I right now.
Awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about the sort of cover art graphic, the sort of early look at is that actually going to be the cover for the game, and is there a story with that guy
that we're showing today? And okay. I sadly can't go into any details in specific armies or specific characters, but what I can say is that we want to, Dice as a studio really want to depict kind of a lot of the unknowns, the smaller stories of the war that people don't necessarily know about, and certain characters as well. I guess you saw in the trailer as well, the woman on the horse is a female veteran warrior, and she's going to be a playable character in the single player campaign.
Okay, all right. Can you tell us something in your research about World War I that really surprised you to learn?
Yeah. No, I mean, the number one thing was the locations, because just as everyone else, I mean, the preconception that this was I thought about it's just it's going to be mud and it's going to be trenches. No, it's not. It is really going all around the world, and it was fought in so many different ways. It was guerrilla fighting inside cities, and that really opened my eyes to all the possibilities of the war. And let's not to mention the weapons available. I mean, shotguns, fully automatic rifles, semi-automatic rifles, pistols, and machine guns, and all these things were available back then.
Hey, thanks for checking out that video on our EPN channel. It's just one small part of the things that we make around here. So if you liked it, don't forget to check out some of our other vids and hit that subscribe button.